The story begins in a live stream. The guy who was recording shows a giant insect appearing in front of him. Before he can react, a shadow leaps towards him as he screams. We then see several people gathering around a cell phone where the video is being played to debate its authenticity. In that university classroom, some question its veracity while others quickly label it as fake. It doesn't seem to make sense that insects of that size could exist in the first place. Among the comments, a boy laughs and hands his cell phone to Suchan, showing a post about a person with insect wings. Suchan lets out a light laugh and questions what's so special about insect wings. With green eyes, Jang Suchan is a 20-year-old university student. He returns the cell phone to its owner and then suggests that the girls want to go out for drinks, inviting his colleagues to join him. But before Suchan can get disappointed, his colleagues quickly show interest in the proposal. As you can see, he is a very popular student. With over 5,000 followers and constant A+ grades, he is always invited to drink and go on dates. And because of this, he arouses envy in many others. And in terms of social hierarchy, one could say he is at the top. Humans live in groups, like animals, like ants and bees. For all living things, there is a hierarchy. And Suchan knows that what defines being strong or weak in college is having an understanding of who is the person everyone follows and envies. So yes, despite his fragile appearance, he is a strong student. And that's something he wouldn't easily give up. One of his friends interrupts his train of thought by asking if he would mind if they drank with the other girls present. Suchan tries to understand until the friend points behind him. Suchan's gaze fixes on two female figures waving enthusiastically in his direction. One of them, with pink hair, is called Mihi. Curious, she approaches and asks Suchan where he planned to go. The other guys show various expressions on their faces. Amid jokes about the emergence of a new couple in the department, Mihi seems confused. Suchan's friends waste no time in inviting her to join them for drinks. And she seems interested. She promptly responds that yes, she wants to go. The guys laugh, commenting on Mihi's reputation for drinking in the department. However, unlike the others, Suchan feels tense in Mihi's presence and casts an apprehensive glance behind him. Something inside him stirs and, impulsively, the young university student pushes Mihi's hand away, causing her to let out a yelp. Everyone seems surprised by the introvert's exaggerated reaction, questioning what went wrong. He apologizes, feeling a growing discomfort in his back under his clothes. At the same moment, he claims to not be feeling well and decides to go home. Although most of those present don't understand, one of them comments that Suchan has these strange moments from time to time. He makes up an excuse about having overexerted himself in wrestling practice and quickly walks away. Out on the street, Suchan lets out a grunt of frustration. He knows the wrestling excuse was weak and realizes he is running out of excuses. The truth is he has a secret he can't share with anyone. Walking down the street, he compares himself to the blonde guy who looks at the scenery expressionlessly. That boy was different at the beginning of the semester, being one of the popular ones among his peers. But everything changed because of his complex. He made the mistake of revealing it in public. One night, after drinking too much at a party, he had a severe allergic reaction to the alcohol or something like that. Embarrassed, he fled the party upon noticing the shocked expressions of his friends. Since then, he has lost confidence and has been wandering around depressed, not knowing what to do. Suchan admits that it's normal for people to keep secrets closely guarded. He is no exception. Revealing his complex would expose his greatest weakness. But why is he thinking about this now, when his social and academic life seems to be going well? He removes the layers of clothing in his bathroom, revealing bandages that begin to unravel. Looking at himself in the mirror, he sighs as he sees insect wings attached to his back. He has a complex. The harsh words about insect wings he said earlier reflect his own disdain for what he possesses. He cannot see these things, these disgusting wings that ruin his life, as something positive. He remembers when, in high school, he sprayed pesticide on a dragonfly and watched it disintegrate into dust. Accidentally, he inhaled that dust, which made him sick for a while. And the next day, he was shocked to see wings sprouting from his back. Huddled under the covers, he wondered if people would start treating him like a monster. Sleepless nights became common, haunted by this persistent fear. He struggled to hide his wings in every possible way. For a long time, Suchan chose to keep his distance from people, refusing invitations to karaoke and other events with friends, all to avoid being discovered. Despite the loneliness, this isolated life made things easier for him. His peculiarities went unnoticed, and he could focus on his university studies. However, he admitted that one thing was particularly difficult. The constant loneliness was so suffocating and depressing that he sometimes wished he had never been born. So, shortly before entering college, he decided to change, starting to take care of his appearance and maintain a friendly demeanor. First, ignoring the discomfort, he found a way to hide the wings under his clothes. He gained confidence as he did this, and his bold change made him popular. He knew that confidence was the first requirement for success, and gradually, more people approached him. While Mihi asks for his number, he reflects on all these changes. But back to reality, a sense of revulsion washes over him at the thought that if people discover his wings, everything he has built will crumble. He turns on the faucet, wishing to have fun with Mihi, but his wings have to get in the way at that very moment. They always bother him. Suchan stretches, needing to release his wings from his clothes frequently to prevent them from becoming numb and causing pain. That's why he leaves. He doesn't want anyone to see this side of him, especially Mihi. But as he opens the bathroom door, he is surprised to find the girl standing there, gaping. Both scream, each for different reasons. Mihi blushes with embarrassment while Suchan feels a chill from the unexpected visit. He closes the door as Mihi asks why he is naked. Leaning against the inside of the bathroom door, he pants. It seems that, from her reaction, Mihi did not see his wings. Trembling, he asks what she is doing there, and she explains that the other guys gave her the address and sent her there. Suchan gets irritated and mentally curses his friends. Mihi, still outside, starts talking about the reason for his frequent absence. She is worried because he seems sick. She suggests that he is hiding something, making Suchan uncomfortable. Inside the bathroom, he responds darkly that he doesn't think he is hiding anything. Leaving the bag of drinks aside, Mihi finds the courage to invite Suchan to leave with her. He seems confused. Mihi doesn't give him time to ponder, insisting that he go to the movies with her and stating that she will wait until he agrees. He tries to argue that he is in pain, but she interrupts him, saying she knows he is lying. Crossing her arms, she reveals that she notices he always worries alone and pretends to be sick. Head down, Mihi questions Suchan about his silence, expressing sadness at his absence. She recalls the moment when he protected her from a guy who was persistently bothering her at the beginning of the semester, and that's why she wants to be involved in his problems too. Mentally, he thanks her, takes a deep breath, and then leaves the bathroom already dressed, inviting her to watch the movie. However, he still fears revealing to her the true root of his problem. Even so, he goes out with her, happy. Nevertheless, he doesn't realize that he is being watched by a hooded figure. His pursuer murmurs in a dark and deep voice that he has found his prey. Shortly before the movie starts, Mihi is approached by two supposed university students conducting a survey. Suchan sighs as she answers the questions of the woman leading the survey. She turns around, showing off a lollipop, making his cheeks flush. While watching the movie, something comes to his mind. If he dated Mihi, he would eventually have to tell her. He watches her silently as she heads to the bathroom, thinking about how he would handle it. Suchan doesn't have the courage to confess his true identity to anyone. With a sad smile, he decides it's better to continue as he is. Suddenly, the movie stops and the power goes out, leaving everyone confused. Suchan looks around, ignoring the discussions, searching for Mihi. Everyone is shocked when an employee rushes in, instructing everyone to evacuate the building due to a dangerous man. He shouts, making it clear that this is not a drill. But he is interrupted when he is pierced in the stomach by a long claw. He cries for help, but the people can only stare. Everyone runs. Suchan stands up, as nervous as the others, and sees the employee's blood flowing. It was dangerous, and he knew he also needed to flee. But first, he needs to find Mihi, who is still in the bathroom. The hooded figure then says, in a threatening voice, that he has found his prey, staring at Suchan with drool dripping. He lunges towards Suchan, who turns desperately to flee. In a quick reflex, he widens his eyes and dives to the side. The man slashes everything around him. Suchan manages to avoid it by a hair, but he is intimidated to see that the man's hands are giant claws. The two stare at each other while Suchan tries to understand what is happening. The man proudly explains that he is looking at a monster. He approaches, assuming that Suchan has also inhaled the insect powder, the jungle juice. The university student freezes upon hearing that name and the mention of the insect powder. The memories return. The man laughs, saying that after the drug transformed him into this, he was able to sense a delicious scent. A scent he only felt when a carnivorous insect like him devoured another insect. Suchan runs in the opposite direction while the man enjoys his despair. Suddenly, he appears behind him, ready to attack. Suchan throws himself to the ground and slides, escaping the blow at the last moment. But in doing so, he comes face to face with Mihi, who calls out to him in concern. Moved, she explains that she left the bathroom looking for him but couldn't find him. The pursuer also fixes his eyes on the girl and describes her as his delicious meal. Suchan jumps up, begging Mihi to run. However, it's too late, as the creature is already in front of her. A commotion breaks out in front of the building when a security guard prevents two young people from entering. The young woman in a cap, previously in charge of the survey that Mihi responded to, decides to enter since the police refuse to intervene. Everyone looks up when someone screams. A pink-haired figure is plummeting towards the asphalt. The clawed man bids her farewell, calling her tasteless prey. Suchan runs to the edge of the window. Mihi is going to die, and he ponders whether to use his wings to save her, even though he has never flown before. But would he risk revealing his secret in front of so many people? Conflicted, he apologizes mentally. However, seeing the girl start to cry, he leaps from the building without hesitation. People react in various ways. Suchan falls agilely, reaching out to Mihi. He grabs her in midair, biting his lips as he envelopes her in an embrace. The clawed man laughs at the boy's foolish decision, knowing that even hybrid insects would die from that height. He is condemning himself along with the girl. Suchan looks down, anxious, knowing that thousands of people will see his secret, destroying his life as it has been. But he doesn't care, as long as Mihi doesn't hate him. He grits his teeth as his wings tear through his clothes, revealing themselves to the world. This is his choice, in the end. This is the answer he found. Using his wings, he tries to slow the fall with Mihi in his arms. The clawed man becomes furious upon seeing what happened. Suchan wanted to hide from everyone, no matter who. But in that moment, he revealed his greatest secret and weakness to save Mihi. This is the story in the concrete jungle, the story of a young oppressed university student in desperate search of survival. The woman in the cap suggests that flying in the city is something unexpected and grand. A voice in her ear questions how to deal with Suchan, even suggesting eliminating him. However, she smiles as she removes the cap, deciding to take him to her school. The citizens in the crowd begin to discuss what they have just witnessed. The clawed man becomes even more furious upon realizing that Suchan had been hiding his wings all along. The university student hovers in the air, surprised by his ability to fly. It was the first time he managed to do so. He flies away with the still unconscious Mihi, while the clawed man yells at him to come back. His eyes light up as he realizes that the only insect capable of providing such abilities would be a dragonfly. Only jungle juice could transmit such DNA. He licks his lips, his desire to crush his prey increasing. But he is caught off guard from behind when the girl in the cap silently attacks him. Seeing him unconscious, she appears relieved to have successfully captured her target. Besides the filmed videos, there were also the murders in the city. After all, beings like them could not be discovered for anything. A month has passed since the incident. The group of colleagues who used to talk to Suchan daily is conversing. On his phone, one of them watches the video of the cinema incident that went viral, where a man with dragonfly wings appeared. They all look to the corner of the room, concluding that, no matter how many times they watch it, the person in the video looks identical to Suchan. The footage from that day is all over the internet now, and rumors are spreading rapidly, making Suchan hide under thick clothes and a hood. He is not sure if this is a blessing or a curse, but several news articles have been written about the events. Suchan has a bitter expression on his face as he recalls that time. 12 years ago, dozens of children are gathered around a cake singing happy birthday. Their teacher watches them with a slightly excited smile, but one child stands alone, silently. It's Suchan, with his arms crossed behind his back and an unreadable expression. The teacher briefly interrupts the celebration and asks the children to sing happy birthday to Suchan as well, but they express no remorse in saying that he is boring. He hadn't even brought any gifts for the other children, and one of the girls says it's because his parents are poor. Suchan has a twisted expression on his face upon hearing his parents being mentioned in such a manner. In the background, he remains silent and reluctant while everyone else talks and eats excitedly. All he wanted was to spend more time with the other children. If he were normal like the others, he might have hope of being happy. But he had always been different from them. Lost in morbid thoughts, someone approaches from behind and tries to lift his clothes. Suchan stiffens and freezes in place. In an instant, he lashes out with a slap, causing the person to stop and recoil helplessly. It's one of the boys who used to talk to him, apologizing because the others sent him to check if Suchan had wings. Suchan glares at him, returning indignantly to the rest of the group who cast judgmental glances. He pulls his hood even tighter, knowing he's being treated like nothing more than an animal in a zoo. In the end, the popular guy who had everyone around him was no more. Suchan walks out of the college while everyone else keeps their distance. Sitting on the bus, he checks his social media to see what has happened. Most people have unfollowed him, as rumors spread that the government was interrogating those involved in the video. But it didn't matter if others were leaving, as long as Mihi stayed. He smiled, hopeful, because he had heard that the girl had recovered and would be discharged today. That was something good. All he needed was her company. Bedridden, Mihi screams at the top of her lungs, begging him not to come near. Suchan gives a strange smile. He then tries to approach her, wanting to understand what happened, but the medical staff doesn't allow it. The the hope vanishes from his eyes. That was the kind and caring Mihi, so why was she treating him that way? With a weak voice, she declares that from now on, Suchan should no longer see her. Being called a monster, Suchan plunges back into his depressed state, and, upon checking his phone, he realized that Mihi had unfollowed him. At home, he scratches his back and concludes that it's all because of those damned wings. Looking at himself in the mirror, holding a pair of scissors, he is about to cut his wings, determined to sacrifice his uniqueness in search of a normal life. Biting on a cloth, he tries to gather the courage to close the scissors but ends up backing off. The scissors slip from his hands, his knees weaken, and solitary tears well up in his eyes. Despite everything, Suchan admits that he is still afraid of the pain of such an act and berates himself for his apparent weakness. Another month has passed. Suchan seems as downcast as before as he walks the streets and catches fragments of conversations around him. Humans live in society, and among all animals that have a social life, there will always be an outcast. He knows that these exiles have the same sad end. He places his foot on the balcony of a building. His final destination is death, just like many other outcasts, and he looks at the ground below from the immense building. Hesitant, he looks down, aware that this decision will make everything easier. He concludes that he no longer wants to suffer and resigns himself to his violent end. But he is interrupted when his wings tear his clothes and stop him in midair. He couldn't even die by falling of his own will. While consumed by sadness, a girl with pink streaks appears, saying she is envious. She says she would like to have his wings, leaving him shocked. Suchan looks at her, intrigued, wondering who she is. To his amazement, she is walking on the wall as if it were nothing, and declares that his idea of trying to jump off a building with wings is stupid. She takes off her cap, making Suchan apprehensive. On her head, 2 antennae stretch down, as she says there is a way to return to normal. Suchan feels a mix of happiness and perplexity that there is a way to return to normal. He also considers the possibility of her being a hybrid insect, based on the antennae, but soon the girl asks to talk inside the building. Inside the building, Suchan pins the girl against the wall, cornering her with one hand placed beside her. He grits his teeth and demands to know how to return to normal. The girl with antennae shrugs and says she has a condition. Putting the cap back on her head, she says that Suchan must go to her school and then a teacher will explain how the process works. Suchan is taken aback by this strange reality. He wonders if she is talking about a university. The girl quickly addresses some of his doubts, saying that there is a school bus waiting for them on the first floor, and she starts descending the stairs. Suchan looks at her seriously and asks how he can trust her, bringing up the case of the praying mantis hybrid. She looks deeply into his eyes and says he can either go back to the top of the building or decide to trust her and go to the school. This way, he will no longer be alone. Suchan grips the stair railing, still not fully trusting the girl, but having no other place to go. Inside the bus, the girl asks Suchan if he knows about that insect spray. She deduces from his reaction that he knows very well what she's talking about. That is a specimen of jungle juice, and it's also the substance responsible for merging human DNA with insect DNA. She explains that the spray had become popular and started selling because of its fame for killing any insect with just one squirt. But the problem was that if you killed an insect with it, the DNA of that insect would merge with the nearest human. Just like it happened with Suchan and the man with the mantis claws, some part of the person's body will become similar to that of the insect. Suchan clenches his fists, questioning who was the bastard that created that spray, but the girl quickly says that no one knows. It's all a mystery, except that several people are exposed to it. Suchan grabs his phone, furious, trying to understand how no one knows about this, but the girl quickly explains that it's because they are hiding all the traces. Suchan asks the girl what she meant by we, but she says they have reached their destination. They get up and leave the bus. Suchan follows her and is surprised to see that they are still inside the tunnel. The girl quickly points out that the tunnels are built inside the mountains and presses a panel on the wall. A vast amount of light hits Suchan's face as the girl announces that they don't like to expose themselves to other people, choosing to live hidden. Suchan, once again, is astonished when the girl says that this is their campus city. He is greeted by a spectacular view of numerous gigantic and modern buildings amidst a mountain. That place is called Nest, the campus city. He enters the place, admitting he never imagined there would be something like that in the mountain. The boy falls silent when he sees that everyone there is like him. He becomes excited to discover that there are so many half-humans like himself and is hopeful about finding a way to be normal again. Inside one of the buildings, the man with the mantis claws is guided by a nest guard. He smells the dragonfly DNA and ends up being electrocuted halfway. But, licking his lips, he swallows the pain and says that Suchan and he will see each other again soon. Several insect hybrid people move around Suchan, using their abilities, and he wonders what this place is. The girl smiles at the amusing reactions and accompanies him. She confirms suspicions, saying they were all affected by the jungle juice. Nest, despite being called a university, is actually a place to protect people like them. The girl elaborates that Suchan won't be alone, and that he isn't the only one. Then, she bids farewell, saying she will report everything to the department office, as he is the only transfer student this semester. She then concludes by welcoming Suchan to Nest. Walking around the place, he still can't believe there was a school straight out of some kind of fantasy world, especially in Korea. He examines the body parts of people, noticing that they all indeed have insect parts like him but don't hesitate to expose them. His back bothers him a bit, but he ignores it when he comes across a middle-aged man sitting on a white stage, meditating. The man is covered in honey and explains to Suchan, even without being asked, that by offering honey, he can receive the creature's protein. Taking one of the creatures from his body, he says it's the circle of life and devours it. Suchan is incredulous and wonders if that man is some kind of Bear Grylls enthusiast to eat such things. He quickly establishes that no one is normal there and turns away. But the man lifts his clothes when Suchan least expects it, wanting to know what kind of insect the boy was. Suchan looks at him, disturbed, when the man sees his dragonfly wings. He flies backwards at an agile speed, retreating away from the old man. The man rises from where he was and makes some comments about Suchan's wings, defining them as great. Then he asks why he's trying to hide them. Suchan, once again, returns to his soulless gaze as he remembers Mihi's words. He covers the wings and says he's there to get rid of them, and the man remains silent. However, he soon calls him a fool, in a hushed tone. Already in a blue building, Suchan is introduced to the head professor of the Insect Benefit Department at Nest, Madohayan. The professor thanks the girl for bringing Suchan to Nest. Suchan gets nervous noticing that this is the person who knows how to reverse the transformations in his DNA. Madohayan is not verbose and says he will get straight to the point, grabbing a remote and starting to explain to the young man. Suchan is impressed by how quickly things have progressed, but he starts paying attention to the video being played on the screen. A voice calls the graduate student as the top of the class, inviting her to step onto the stage and receive the Cinderella serum. Suchan tries to understand what this Cinderella serum is. On the screen, a person with a disgusting fly head delights in a drink. As soon as it finishes, the glass falls from their hands, and Suchan is startled by what he sees. Starting from their hands, through all the other transformations, the thing with the fly head turns into a beautiful girl. Suchan points to the screen and asks what she had just taken. The professor replies that it's something developed accidentally in the research department. Using the principles behind how jungle juice works, they simply separated the insect DNA from the human body. The man shows a capped vial, where a blue liquid resides, and says that this is the medicine that brings people back to what they were before, the so-called Cinderella serum. Suchan understands that it's the cure and asks if it would really be able to make him normal again. But as he's about to ask the professor for help, he's interrupted by the man, who says he can't hand over the serum. In the end, synthesizing the Cinderella serum is complicated due to the circumstances, and therefore, the stock is limited. The professor says it's impossible to return everyone to normal, so if he wants, he must enroll in the academy and graduate as the best in his department. The Cinderella serum is only made available to the top students who contribute significantly to the academy, like the fly girl in the video they just watched. Suchan is in a dilemma for a second when asked what he will do. He and the girl are seen walking across the campus, discussing what he will do. She assures him that he doesn't need to rush, and that the choice is his whether to enroll in the academy or just live there. Turning back, she expresses that becoming the top student will be quite difficult, but Suchan has already made his decision. Pulling out glasses, he says he needs credits and will get them on his own. A few hours later, in front of the lecture hall, a series of people are gathered. It's class registration day. Suchan feels somewhat disconnected amidst all those people. The girl had helped him immensely. She handed him a Nest guide, explaining that all essential classes are predetermined and that all Suchan has to do is choose from 3 different classes. He flips through the guide and wonders what's wrong with the available courses. The boy concludes that the only class that seems good, and where more than half of the students got an A grade, is called Unraveling Nest Defense, taught by Professor Madohayan. Closing the notebook, Suchan makes up his mind and shows a determined look. But soon he realizes that everyone is there to register for classes. Normally, Suchan would go to a PC cafe to register for classes, but he doesn't know how to register for Nest classes. Then, a silver-haired girl passes right in front of him holding the neck of a young man with reddish hair. Suchan turns to the side, not understanding what's happening, as the woman delivers several blows to the guy trapped in her hands. The silver-haired girl shouts at the young man on the ground that he shouldn't have shown up there again. She takes a kick to the leg when he calls her a psychopath. Suchan finds it all ridiculous and decides to walk away. A voice tells Suchan not to feel scared. Then, the girl in the cap walks past him, warning that he'll see many more things like that around there. The two involved in the fight are lifted by the collar against their will, unable to even retaliate. Then, they're ruthlessly thrown in opposite directions. Suchan sees the antennas and immediately recognizes to whom they belong. Both the boy and the girl land roughly on the hall floor and wonder who was responsible for assaulting them like that. But as they lift their heads to see, they're surprised to find that it was none other than the class representative herself, Park Wai-jin. Suchan swallows hard at the idea of being in the same class as the representative, wondering if everything will be okay. He sits at a classroom computer, relieved not to be late. Behind him, the three responsible for the earlier commotion bicker, and he feels like his dream of having a normal high school life won't come true. But Suchan quickly focuses on completing the course registration. He knows that the most important thing is not to mess up his routine or forget about important classes, and that's why he needs to take Professor Ma Do-hyan's course at any cost. Ma Do-hyan looks out at the nest through his office window when he's greeted by someone. It's the white-haired and bearded man who had greeted Suchan earlier, the head professor of the nest's insect benefit department, Jun-ji. He approaches Ma Do-hyan, saying he heard about a transfer student. Then he asks what he thinks of the boy. Jun-ji responds with a laugh, saying there was no chance of that happening. Suchan looks helpless as everyone rushes out of the classroom without hesitation as soon as course registration begins. He rises from his seat and tries to understand where everyone is going, shaking his head from side to side. Jun-ji then says that's how registration works in the nest. The individual must use their head to try to win before anything else because only the strongest survive in the jungle. Suchan leans against the edge of the classroom window, trying to understand where everyone is going in a sudden frenzy. A warning beep goes off in his head as he thinks this must be related to the enrollment process. Still, he can't help but entertain the possibility that everyone has gone mad all at once when a small figure approaches him. Asking if he's the transfer student, the person remarks that it seems he hasn't had time to listen to the explanations. It's a small boy, chatting with Suchan. As they both walk through the forest surrounding the nest buildings, he explained that unlike standard procedures, students have to find the professor, who is hidden somewhere, to enroll in classes. The professor in question gives USB drives to the first 16 students who find him, and only when the USB drive is inserted into the notebook in the classroom can the student enroll. Suchan gets agitated, saying now is not the time for trivial conversations, and the little boy asks if he has already decided which professor he will choose. He promptly replies yes, and that he will have classes with Professor Ma, stating that his goal is to become one of the top students. The little boy smiles, impressed by the determination. They then part ways and take different paths to find their respective professors. Suchan, however, questions himself on how he will find the professor, considering he's late compared to the others. He realizes it would help to know where everyone else went, and sets out to find a high point. Looking at his back, he takes off his overcoat and exposes his wings, ready to fly. Already above the forest, he sharpens his vision so he can see where the others are going, devising a plan to achieve his goal. Several flags are scattered in various parts of the forest, indicating where the professors will be. Upon hearing a thud, Suchan looks down and sees two students in combat. The scene repeats in several different places, with people fighting in groups or alone. He soon discovers that enrollment in classes is the reason. Wasting no time, Suchan heads to one of the flags in search of Professor Ma Do-hyan. On a high peak, Ma Do-hyan is sitting reading a book and drinking tea. Suchan lands violently next to him, catching his attention. Despite flying too fast to keep his eyes open, Suchan is glad his assumption was correct. The direction everyone was going, there could only be one professor worth all this competition in the nest. Ma Do-hyan expresses that Suchan is on the right track to secure one of the necessary USB drives to enroll in his classes. With an innocent smile, he receives the last available USB drive from the professor. He explains to the boy that all that's left now is to insert the device into the computer, but that he must be careful not to trigger any security mechanism. Radiant, Suchan turns in front of several other students and recognizes that he has taken a significant step toward his goal. Ma Do-hyan picks up a device after distributing all the USB drives and presses a button, causing all the students' phones, including Suchan's, to vibrate simultaneously. Suchan turns on his phone, still skeptical, only to see that the content of what he just received is a hit list of the USB drive holders of the classes, where his face is stamped as a priority. On the other side of the forest, Jun-ji is lying relaxed and ignoring the students fighting behind him, showing more interest in Suchan's complicated situation. Park Wai-jin is amazed to realize that the transfer student managed to obtain the USB drive from Professor Ma Do-hyan, something that seemed impossible. All the students seem excited as they look at the message, and several figures gather around, preparing. Suchan looks to the side, only to receive a powerful punch that forces him to crouch. The tree behind him is thrown to the other side when a long-horned beetle hybrid emerges snorting, and Suchan is both ecstatic and scared at the same time. He jumps downhill, still trying to understand why they are picking a fight with him so suddenly. However, the boy is surprised by another hybrid, this time possessing the lethal abilities of a whip spider. Suchan then spins and struggles to avoid being hit by any of the incessantly delivered blows in his direction, now aware that all this is because of the USB drive. He accelerates, desperately trying to distance himself, wondering why such a crazy enrollment process exists, while people run after him in droves. A familiar voice suddenly greets him, calling him to go to a nearby tree. Suchan sees that it's the boy who explained the enrollment process to him and decides to listen to him, changing direction, causing everyone else to disperse, going in the wrong directions. He breathes heavily inside the tree, thankful, relieved to have found such a nice person like the boy, who seems to be his only hope at the moment. The boy scratches his head, with an enigmatic smile, and asks how he can be so kind, stating that it's foolishness as he pricks Suchan's forehead with his fingers, leaving him confused and a little frustrated. Suchan loses all strength in his knees, feeling his body not responding to his commands, as if he's trapped in his own body. The boy takes advantage of the situation and steals Suchan's precious USB drive, explaining with a smile that the honeybee venom will prevent any movement for a considerable amount of time. Suchan remains silent, and the boy smiles psychotically, commenting that acting like a nice guy really paid off at that moment. He finds Suchan's situation hilarious, expressing that everyone there is a competitor and that the young man is a fool. After all, the only purpose of that enrollment process is to make the students fight each other. The boy then mocks Suchan's immobility and assures that he'll take good care of the USB drive before leaving the tree. Suchan finally regains movement in his body, reaching for his head and removing the stinger left by the traitor. He realizes that this way, he won't be able to reach the top of the department and obtain the Cinderella serum, and rushes out, but determined. The boy just flies away, mocking Suchan and asking him not to waste his energy, as he's slower due to the venom. Suchan reaches out, exhausted, when his eyes glow in an even brighter light green, a new power awakening inside him. He can see every movement of the boy, so he can precisely predict where he's going. After all, the dragonfly, known as the Queen of Hunting, has a success rate of 95%. The secret lies in its eyes, formed by thousands of lenses that can capture any movement within 360 degrees. Using this ability, the dragonfly reads its prey's movements and predicts its path while hunting, a skill that Suchan now understands and begins to master. And at that moment, Suchan mentally visualized for the first time in his entire life that he wanted to hunt. Suchan realized that the dragonfly's eyes never lose sight of its prey and decided to take advantage. The boy is surprised when he approaches unbelievably fast, hitting his chin with a fierce punch, knocking him down instantly. A feminine hand firmly inserts a red USB drive into one of the computers at the nest, completing her enrollment in classes. Park Wai-jin lets out a sigh of relief, expressing satisfaction at having completed everything successfully, while wondering how much time is left until the process closes. The orange-haired boy, involved in the confusion in the hall, watches her and inquires about the fate of the transfer student. He comments on the intense competition for Professor Mado Hyan's USB drive, emphasizing that failing to enroll within the deadline automatically puts one on the waiting list. Park Wai-jin rests her head on her hand, reflecting and stating that he will have to dedicate himself intensely to achieve his goal. Suchan lands a precise blow to the chin of the B-skilled boy, causing him to release the USB drive. He distances himself from his opponent, trying to understand how the USB drive ended up in that state. Accelerating towards the ground, Suchan reaches out to grab the USB drive, plummeting towards the forest. But before his fingers can grasp the object, a girl leaps high, proclaiming that it's a wonderful gift. She speeds off in the opposite direction, leaving Suchan behind, expressing her determination to make good use of the USB drive. Suchan begins to head towards her, but hesitates upon noticing the boy who had stolen his USB drive still in free fall, about to collide with the ground. Watching him unconscious with a single punch, Suchan finds it ridiculous. However, helping him would mean losing his USB drive. Yet, Suchan's moral convictions speak louder, and he takes off with the boy in his arms, turning back to declare that he can't simply ignore it. He's not an animal, he's a human being. Carrying the boy with him, he flies away, leaving him lying under a tree. In the end, this choice cost him the chance to pursue the thief, and Suchan recognizes that he needs, at the very least, to obtain another USB drive. However, breathless and debilitated, he collapses, realizing that his body no longer responds as it used to, probably due to the effects of the venom. Certainly, the boy wouldn't die, but Suchan finds it absurd to be reduced to this state because of an enrollment process, and he drags himself along the ground. On the verge of fainting, he tries to keep his focus on his goal but is surprised by the appearance of Junji, who is munching on cookies and calling him pathetic. Suchan stands up, trying to discern how much time has passed. With little effort, he quickly identifies who the man is. However, Junji seems uninterested in conversation and mentions that the enrollment deadline is approaching. A defeated expression takes over Suchan when the man reveals that there are only 5 minutes left and that he should try again next year. Nonetheless, Suchan tries to argue that he was attacked after obtaining a USB drive. Junji lets out a long sigh and questions whether Suchan has a loose screw or is just an idiot. He remains silent when the man asks if he is asking for a special exception in the enrollment process. Turning indignantly, Junji declares that, in the nest, the strongest have a voice and that one must fight to achieve their goal. Moreover, the professors were monitoring everything from the start, intervening in anything that posed a fatal threat. Explaining that jungle juice turns humans into weapons, Junji argues that the nest cannot be a regular school where one only studies from books. However, he offers Suchan the option to give up on the Cinderella serum and live a peaceful life as a human-insect hybrid in the civilian part of the nest. While Suchan remains silent, Junji tosses the bag of cookies, jokingly telling him not to forget to separate the trash. Left alone in the forest, Suchan reflects that, after all, he did not enroll in any class. If he had let his opponent die, perhaps he would have succeeded in enrolling. Suchan clenches the bag, overwhelmed with anger, acknowledging that he is a complete loser for even considering such a thought after all he has been through. Raising his hand, about to throw the bag on the ground, he recalls the professor's words. He comments on the inconvenience of the old man giving him that task after he had already failed to enroll. However, upon opening the bag to separate the trash, he finds a red USB drive. Suchan looks up, with only 5 minutes remaining until the end of enrollments. In the distance, Professor Madohayan greets Junji. Impressed by the direct delivery of the USB drive, Madohayan observes Suchan with admiration, especially considering that Junji apparently despises him. Junji mentions a popular saying, "Keep your friends close and your enemies closer." Closing his eyes, Suchan speeds through the forest, aware that time is running out. The fear of failing the landing haunts his thoughts as he increases his speed, pondering the necessity of keeping his eyes open. Suddenly, a brilliant idea pops into his mind, and he stops abruptly, pulling out his pair of glasses. Putting them on, he gains protection from dust and wind, allowing for even greater acceleration. Several individuals gather in front of the school, conspiring about the best strategy to steal USB drives from their potential targets. Spotting someone approaching, they prepare to act, confident that the wait will be worth it. But before they can react, the individual speeds past them like lightning. Surprised and frustrated, they decide to follow the target to the classroom, willing to break the rules to achieve their goal. As they run, they are surprised by the boy with orange hair, delivering a series of kicks that knock them down mercilessly. Stunned, they question the identity of their adversary. As they lift their heads, they see the class representative, Park Wai-jin, accompanied by Chun Dua and Cha Hai-song, two influential first years. Park Wai-jin received a message from Professor Junji, tasking her with assisting the transfer student. A smile of satisfaction lights up her face as she considers what Suchan might have done to catch the professor's attention in that way. Suchan bursts through the classroom window, covered in sweat. He rushes to a computer still turned on and inserts his USB drive, filling in the information with cheeks puffed from tension. Pressing the keys firmly, he watches with relief as his enrollment is confirmed for the Insect Practical Combat class. The boy, speechless, examines the messages on the screen before stretching, grateful that everything worked out in the end. As he tries to steady his breathing, still immersed in thoughts about his quest for excellence, the computer emits a notification sound. Intrigued, Suchan directs his gaze to the screen. He gets up from the chair upon receiving the news that the orientation will begin soon and heads to the main classroom, wondering if there will be more planned for that day. On the way, Suchan is stopped by ant guards. They push him back and say that it is a restricted area that only nest students and teachers can enter. Suchan tries to argue, saying that he is one of the students, but as soon as the guards ask him for his student ID, the boy freezes. Fortunately, the class representative Park Wai-jin appears suddenly and helps Suchan out of his predicament, showing his ID and saying that it had just been issued. The two then proceed along the same path, and Suchan is surprised to find out that the representative is in his class. The girl then comforts Suchan, telling him not to be sad about his situation, even though Professor Madohayan's classes are more appropriate for him, hinting that he might not be able to become the top student in the department. But Suchan counters by saying that he has not given up yet. Park Wai-jin looks at him, impressed, and murmurs quietly that he is unexpectedly courageous. The representative leads Suchan to the auditorium, and as soon as they enter, he is promptly recognized by everyone, especially by a girl who calls him Dragonfly Guy. Surprised, she expresses disbelief that they are in the same room. Soon, Suchan becomes the center of attention, with some mentioning his YouTube video, others highlighting his good looks, and the rest surprised to be in the presence of a celebrity. Suchan is astonished to realize that everyone there already knew what he had done. One of the guys in the auditorium raises his voice above the others, asking if Suchan is crazy for showing his wings in public so blatantly. Suchan recognizes the guy as the scary one who was fighting in front of the school. He continues his speech, sharing their suffering along with the representative to divert the public's attention for an entire month and their efforts to prevent Suchan from being captured by government scientists. The representative intervenes, defending Suchan and asking him to ignore the troublemaker. She expresses solidarity, stating that everyone understands his actions since he acted only to save someone. Additionally, she emphasizes that she would do the same and encourages Suchan to take pride in his actions. The word kind comes to his mind when he thinks of her, and before he can express his gratitude, the representative has to leave because she has an important task for her professor. Faced with this, Suchan simply accepts it without any apparent reaction. The bully becomes annoyed with the representative's actions and turns around when someone touches his shoulder. He insinuates that the representative is siding with Suchan because he is a transfer student. However, something approaches from behind him, an imposing man who had recently appeared. He glances briefly before smashing the bully's head against the table, leaving it stained with blood. With a commanding presence, the man greets the others as his colleagues. He explains that he was about to say something important but found it boring. Then, he addresses the issue directly, asking the students to lend him the position of top student while people dressed like him enter the room with bats. The others express dissatisfaction but are too frightened to counter the bully's declarations, who states that he is extremely interested in the Cinderella serum. He then proposes confiscating all the IDs so that he can be the only student this term, declaring himself a genius behind this simple but effective plan. Suchan reacts indignantly, clenching his fists and shouting against the complete idiocy of the situation. Without hesitation, he flies towards the bully, determined not to surrender his ID. However, his adversary only laughs, mocking the attempt of a flying insect launching itself at him. Then, one of his henchmen hits Suchan on the head with a bat, and he is enveloped by a flash of light before waking up in an unknown place. Waking up with a throbbing head and somewhat disoriented, Suchan is surprised to find himself in the nest's medical facility. The representative, while storing the medications used for the dressings, explains that after completing the task assigned by the professor, she returned to the auditorium and found Suchan and the bully fallen and bloodied. Without hesitation, she brought them immediately to the medical wing. Suchan, realizing that his ID had been stolen, panics, but is soon reassured by the representative. She turns decisively, promising to get new IDs and assuring him that she will return soon. Suchan, once again, expresses his gratitude, admiring her internally. Unfortunately, his mind drifts to Mihi, a painful reminder of someone who also cared deeply for others. The bully abruptly calls out to Suchan, startling him and making him wonder how he is still standing after everything. Suchan quickly explains to the bully about the theft of the student IDs but reassures him by mentioning that the representative is already handling the problem. The bully, however, ridicules his words, calling him naive for trusting Park Hye-jin, suggesting that it would have been simpler to end the competition for the top spot, and questioning if Suchan believes all the IDs will be made in a day. This triggers a sudden realization in Suchan, who recalls the heroic words of the representative during the event in the auditorium. Park Hye-jin advances determinedly through the forest, confronting the bully and his henchmen who hold baseball bats. A furious expression takes over her face as she questions if they have no intention of returning the IDs. The bully raises the IDs like trophies, mocking the girl while she is surrounded by his henchmen. His plan seems to be unfolding as intended, for from the beginning, his intentions were not just to recover the students' IDs. His true objective was to ambush the representative and top student of the first term in practical combat classes, Park Hye-jin. With ease, she throws one of the henchmen forward, while the others advance, insulting her. Using her agility, she jumps over them, spinning to gain momentum and delivering precise blows. The bully clicks his tongue, acknowledging the impossibility of defeating her on solid ground. Provocatively, he announces that he will throw the IDs into the water. Hye-jin runs to intercept them, but is stopped by the bully, who makes her trip. With a wicked smile, he reveals his true form, with long, sharp legs emerging from his back, marking him as a balastomatidi, the most feared predator of aquatic insects. Hye-jin is caught off guard by a punch to her back, making her bones creak. Thrown into the water, she surfaces, clutching the bully's legs as he tries to drown her. He mocks her, saying it will be much easier to be the top student without her interference, insinuating that it would be too suspicious to kill her there. Grabbing Hye-jin by the neck, the bully tightens his grip with a macabre smile, suggesting that no one would suspect if she drowned. The other bullies clamor for revenge, demanding that their Hyungnim bring her out and give her a painful death for what she did to them. However, just as he considers torturing her before killing her, something at high speed hits the river and the bully simultaneously, producing a sharp sound. The others try to understand what happened, while Jin emerges from the river, gasping. Everyone turns to see Suchan standing over the gang leader, sternly reprimanding them for being there, stating that nothing justifies their actions and that they are all pieces of trash. The gang questions who that guy is, recognizing him as the flying insect from the auditorium. At that moment, the bully clenches his fists tightly, amused that Suchan is standing after the beating he took. He orders Suchan to die, throwing a punch that seems like a projectile, but the boy dodges. It's like the last time with the little honeybee, as Suchan can anticipate all his movements as if they were a simple pattern, his eyes emitting a ghostly glow. The bully tries to grab him in a straight line, but Suchan evades easily, noting that his opponent's movements are not that fast. Thinking that victory would be easy against that type of opponent, Jin shouts for him to get out of there as quickly as possible. One of the legs tries to hit Suchan's neck from behind, mimicking a pincer attack, but the boy flies backward and goes to Jin. He jokes about the fight, and Jin comments that the bully is in a different class in terms of power, besides highlighting the advantage of the location for him. His insect is of the aquatic type, and everything will be over once they are dragged into the water. At any cost, they have to get out of that river. But, as they consider the idea, the bully mocks them both, saying that the IDs are there, calling them scum. In response, Suchan expresses that they are cowards for being in greater numbers and fighting at an advantage. He is taken aback when Jin tells him to leave, emphasizing that there is no need for him to fight too. She walks forward slowly, knowing that their target is the top student of the first trimester and that they might return the IDs if she is defeated. However, Suchan interrupts her monologue, saying that she shouldn't say those words. Standing beside her, he recalls what she said to him when she brought him to the school and announces that she won't be alone. The bully puts his hand on the shoulder of one of his henchmen and, in a second, takes down two of the opponents with a kick. He shouts that he came to get his ID back. The boy is a hybrid of a field cricket, hunting with his strong legs with spikes. The gang leader knows that the cricket, Cha Hai-song, is also annoying and had already planned to take care of him after the class representative. He turns around when a sound whistles past his ear, and Suchan tries to grab the IDs, failing miserably. With his sharp legs, he slashes upwards, but Suchan gains space and asks who made a mistake. He maneuvers in the air in various different ways around the bully, elucidating that he just needs to avoid being caught while striving to retrieve the IDs. The bully realizes that Suchan's movements are no longer just in a straight line and considers that it might be because he has more space. As he watches Suchan regain momentum, he tries to understand how his opponent can fly so efficiently. Suchan flies straight towards the bully but veers off at the last second, passing through the attacks and aiming for the IDs. What the bully didn't expect was that Suchan would use all his dragonfly speed to hit him with all possible force. The bully is slightly pushed back when Suchan's punch inadvertently breaks through his defenses. Suchan shouts that their differences don't matter, as that should have been enough. But to his surprise, the bully doesn't even fall and counterattacks without thinking. However, he notices that the damage was halved due to the water environment, and the bully asks if there is any reason for what they are doing. He looks around and down at the ground, realizing he is surrounded, and tries to buy time by saying it would be better for everyone to resolve the situation with a friendly and peaceful dialogue. Something moves underwater behind Jin. A henchman with green hair grabs her in a chokehold, but she knocks him out with a shoulder movement. The dilemma was that his intention was to buy time for the bully to reach Jin, and she only realizes this when he shouts that everything will be resolved once he kills her. Luckily, Suchan grabs the bully by the legs, lifting him into the air before he can hit Jin. Spinning with the bully in his hands, Suchan boldly proclaims that they are no longer in the adversary's territory but in his. The bully is hurled to the ground, hitting his head and passing out as Suchan asserts that his methods are flawed. He takes back the IDs and expresses that if you become a human who isn't even worthy of being an insect, then the efforts are meaningless in the end. Jin watches him, in the water, with her hand on her chest, admiring Suchan's words and altruism. Something seems to awaken in her towards the boy. When the three returned to the auditorium, sadly the initial orientations had already ended. Suchan and the others returned the stolen IDs to their classmates, but they decided to keep it a secret that they were the ones who returned them in the first place. The representative had insisted on keeping it a secret and said that everything happened because of her. She pleaded so much that it would have been difficult for Suchan to refuse. Suchan couldn't participate in the orientations, which disheartened him a bit, and he didn't become a hero for returning the IDs. But the good thing is that he got a new home. His old residence was a bit far from the university. However, now that he decided to enroll in the nest, a house on campus didn't sound like a bad idea. He flinches slightly when an arm rests on his shoulder. It's his roommate, the student Cha Hai-song, who says he was extremely cool handling the situation earlier. The two start a conversation while Suchan admires the department's shirt, and Cha Hai-song asks if he drinks. The idea of just the two of them drinking alone doesn't seem interesting, but a female voice surprises him when the door opens. The representative Jin enters the room accompanied by the girl with silver hair, bringing drinks and snacks. Suchan blushes slightly but doesn't complain when the representative mentions they were planning a start-of-term party. She approaches with her arms crossed, leaning over Suchan, and invites him to drink with all of them. Perhaps it was because the young university student hadn't drunk for a while, but ever since he joined the strange academy of the nest, or more precisely, since he exposed his wings, he felt like he was having more fun. Somewhere in the forest beyond the nest's facilities, the bully is reprimanded by a voice questioning why he couldn't eliminate the professor's disciples. The person responsible for the reprimand has a feminine figure with defined curves and an insect head. She declares that although he has fulfilled the role of drawing attention, those who fail in their hunt are eliminated. The bully begs for his life, promising to do better next time. He even offers the Cinderella serum to the woman, but she quickly refuses, stating she doesn't need anything like that. Her eyes glow red as she leaps from the tree branch towards the bully. Blood splatters everywhere, and the bully's corpse lies motionless on the forest floor. The woman lifts the insect head she was wearing, revealing a stunning appearance. She criticizes the bully for being so strong yet still defeated, but emphasizes that their boss will be pleased to have found what they were looking for. The next day, in the auditorium of the Department of Benefits and Insects, everyone gathers again for classes. Suchan is anxious because today is the first class of the main subject, practical insect fighting. He has many questions about what will be taught and is very nervous. The representative touches his hand, teasing him and saying he shouldn't be so shaky. After all, it's just the first class, and it was said that the students would only participate in a basic test. Suchan is further reassured when Jin exclaims that she will be willing to help him, even if there are many things he doesn't know how to do or handle. The professor then abruptly enters the room, and, asking for everyone's attention, begins to explain that, as discussed, they will all take a simple test. He grabs a stylized chainsaw and turns it on noisily in the classroom, emphasizing that the test results will reflect in the students' grades. Looking at them, Professor Ji-jun raises his chainsaw, warning that they could die and that they should take note of this, causing Suchan to panic internally. If you liked our story, leave a like on the video and subscribe for the next part. See you later, guys.